Hey, Amie,
Yeah, Juan.
give me that beat.
It's Baseball Shangri-La with Amie Cuevas and Juan Ramirez.
What's up, party people? She is Amie Cuevas. I am Juan Ramirez. You are listening or watching Baseball Shangri-La. If you are listening to us on the audio portion of the show, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast, rate us, write us a review, help spread with the word about the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification button. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us your comments. We love interacting with you. Make sure you have the notifications on as well. And make sure you're following us on social media on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, YouTube, and Bluesky at Baseball Shangri-La. Amie, ¿cómo estás?
Hey, we made it through 162 games.
162, the season is over. And luckily, again, we found further proof that the Dodgers listen to this show. They watch this show because on the last episode, what did I say, Amie? I said they need to wrap things up in Arizona. So when they get to Seattle, they don't have to worry about the division. And sure enough, they ended up wrapping things up in Arizona. So before we get into some baseball stuff, do you have anything from the comments corner that you want to address?
I did get a couple messages on social media from some of our listeners. So Roland reached out to make sure everything was copacetic because we hadn't posted in a while, and that coincided with getting our episode up. But he just shared some thoughts on Clayton Kershaw and his career, and it was just a reminder of how much this really just touched all of us. Like the fact that he mentioned like the era is coming through, to an end. And there's just what I'm hearing from a lot of people. There's a lot of emotion surrounding that. Like he said, his kids really weren't really shy. He explained to them that, we saw someone finishing doing something he's done for over 30 years, something he's done since around the age of 5. And now he's decided that it's coming to an end. It's time to rest. And just that he was happy to witness it all. And I think that's kind of something that I think collectively the fan base is coming through or going through, especially as we start to talk about that final Mariners series. But it was just nice to hear from some of our listeners, and then Jose Covarrubias, who we met at the beginning of the season, was actually at that Mariners series. So he was at the game on Saturday, bringing some luck and just checking in, saying hi to us, and asking if we're ready for October. So thanks everybody for reaching out.
And I know Brandy was surprised about the whole Kershaw announcement thing, and I agree with you, Brandy. I mean, I knew there was a possibility of it happening, but I think what happened was it happened so quickly. Like, I guess it feels like quickly, but it was just maybe because we just didn't expect it for him to just come out and say, "Hey, I'm done." I'm just like, "Oh, okay, well." We don't have a lot of time to process this because you're going to be pitching tomorrow. So
Well, and I
it
think
looks
he's said in the past like that they usually make these decisions in the off season. So I think everybody was kind of assuming we would hear one way or another that way, not necessarily in season.
yeah, that's absolutely true. Anything else from the comments?
No, I think that off the top of my head, I think that was everything I had.
So we have maybe a potential base running blunder, and I want to maybe the scorecards can correct this or not, Amie. But my compadre, who is an avid Yankee fan,
Mhm.
informed me that Giancarlo Stanton did not hit 450 at Yankee Stadium.
I That's what was reported on. I can't go to the scorecard. I can go to the um, girls at the ballpark. So let me just go back.
I defer to him because he is a Yankee fan and he watches every Yankee game. But after
It,
listening
it
to
just
the
says Yankees Giancarlo Stanton hit his 450th career home run at Yankee Stadium.
okay, so you need to take that up, compadre, with what's her
No,
moniker, the girl from the ballpark.
we don't need to take anything up with anybody. If it's a mistake, it's a mistake. We don't need to go attacking people.
So according to my compadre, he hit it at Camden Yards.
Okay.
So
And
now
if
he
that's
need
the case, then he is right. And if not, it's
Yeah, and the minute he listens to this episode, he's going to go back and he's going to double check it, and he'll let me know if it's his fault. He will check himself and say, you know what, my bad.
and that's fine. And if he's right, then kudos to him. But I don't want to go start chasing down accounts because somebody made a mistake. Like
it's not your style. I get it.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Nope.
All right. Well, let's get into it. And a pleasant good evening to you wherever you may be. Let's start with some updates, Amie.
Updates? Should we do some updates? This will be our last regular season updates, man.
Yes, the last regular season updates.
So we have some injury stuff, and then we have some moves that they made. So Kirby Yates did end up going to the 15-day IL, retroactive to September 21st. So he has a right hamstring strain. We did see, and we'll talk about it more later, but Max Muncy and Tommy Edman were out of one of the quite a few of the games. Max Muncy with an unspecified lower half injury, so that's impacting his swing. But he should be ready to go for the Wildcard series. So we heard that from Dave Roberts, from Brandon Gomes, and then Tommy Edman had some ankle soreness, which he's had on and off all year. So they're just trying to rest him before that final stint, and we'll get to some of the reasons why we were resting him and why we could rest him. Brock Stewart, who we brought up last week on the show, he ended up going out with season-ending surgery. So he's having shoulder surgery on his right shoulder. He's having a debridement procedure, which I don't know what that entails, but it just sounds awful. And so obviously going to see Dr. Ella Trash, but getting that addressed. And then Will Smith started swinging a bat on the 27th. He's hitting foam balls. So there is hope. The door is not closed, but in reality, we just really, really don't know if we're going to see him in the postseason or not. So that remains to be seen because he would need to make quick progress. And then we saw Andrew Heaney make an appearance. So they did select his contract, brought him up, optioned Will Klein, which is what you had surmised would happen. And they recalled Landon Knack, which is what I was hoping would happen, that he would get a shot before the end of the season to kind of shake some of the rust off.
A couple of things. So I nobody called me out on this, but I'm correcting my own base running blunder.
Be kind to yourself, friend.
And it's related to Will Klein. The last episode I had mentioned about optioning these people to give other people opportunity to get work this past weekend. And I thought, oh, well, you can option them and then put them right back on the roster. Well, Will Klein is not eligible to come back until the NLDS. So if they had optioned guys like Robleski or some of those rookies that I had mentioned, they wouldn't have been eligible for the wild card. So that is my bad. I stand corrected on that one for you. And the other thing I wanted to follow up on when you mentioned Landon Knack, I mea culpa, everybody. I totally forgot about Landon Knack until he got called up. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, wait, where has Landon Knack been? Like, why?
See, he's been entwined with Bobby Miller in my brain since you brought up Bobby Miller, like, a month or so ago with the relief.
He totally became the forgotten man for me. And I'm just sitting there going, so I had to do research. I was checking. It was like, was Landon Knack hurt? Is that why he was down in the minors for so long? And then, so when they called him up and he cleaned up that game on Sunday in Seattle, I couldn't believe. I was like, how did I forget about Landon Knack? And why wasn't Landon Knack ever considered?
50 million pitchers.
Well, I know, but you would think that, I know he started off kind of shaky at the beginning of the season. So I just felt like he was good in the past. So I don't know. In my mind, when I saw him, I was like, wait, was he hurt? Is that why they didn't use him in the second half of the season? So apparently, and we'll get into this when we start recapping the series, I think the Dodgers look at certain players for specific roles only. And we'll get into that when we talk about, they haven't officially announced who's on the wild card roster yet. At the time we are recording this, it is Monday afternoon. I was secretly hoping that it would be released before, but more than likely we probably won't get it until tomorrow, right before the game. But those are just a couple of things I wanted to point out there. So,
Yeah,
Any
oh, I was just gonna say it's kind of speaking to some of that. Like I have it as kind of an update note, but not really an update note. We'll get to it more as we talk about the series. But Glasnow didn't pitch not a full game because obviously we're not really seeing those that much anymore. But he only pitched a few innings the other night, and they're saying that so that he'll be available in relief in the wild card, but he will not be starting in that series. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay, well, let's look back at the week that was for the Doyers. And I really think what was most important was they did what I told them they needed to do, which was to wrap things up in Arizona, win the division. And look, that's 12 division wins in the last 13 years. There's always that outlier with the year that Gigantes had. But again, I know you're really proud and happy about this, Amie, but at least from the Dodger fans, I heard that game on Tuesday when the bullpen came in and bullpenned. Was there a part of you at all that thought, oh no? Because by that time, the lead had got cut down to 1.5 games. And there wasn't a part of you that I know the math was in the Dodgers' favor because the magic number was still 3, and it would
Hmm.
be really hard. I mean, basically, I think the Dodgers would have had to have lost out. But was there a part of you after that bullpen that said, because I know I got a bunch of messages from Dodger fans going, this bullpen is going to cost them the division, isn't it, Juan? They're going to end up having to open the playoffs in Chicago against the Cachorros instead of being at home. So, no, you were fully confident?
I wasn't fully like I even messaged you and I was like, "Ugh," because the frustration, but the frustration
Yeah,
wasn't
that
that.
surprised me, by the way, because Amie is even keel. She's steady. Like, this is just baseball. And then when I started getting text messages from you and during that game, I'm like, oh no, what's happening?
I was trying to communicate with you at the end of the season. That's all. I just missed. So again, we pulled the curtain back a couple of times on this show. Like we don't talk a lot during the week so that we don't make our show sound scripted. But I realized as the season was coming to an end, like I miss chatting with you. Like we don't talk baseball anymore because we save it all for the show, and I just missed my friend. But no, I was definitely frustrated with how the end went, especially after we saw that Sunday game with Trinan. But at the same time, it didn't shake my faith in we're not gonna. I mean, we already had a division spot, so I knew we were going. So to me, I guess would I like to have the division win? Or sorry, not a division spot. We had clinched the postseason. I would like to have the division win, but if we didn't get it, it would, kind of be like that Giants year, but we still at least get to go. So I don't know. Why? What were you hearing?
Yeah, well, what I was hearing was I think that's what everybody's afraid of. And I know we talked about in the last week that the bullpen is the Achilles heel of this team going into the playoffs. So when you have Shohei for the first time, the unicorn goes 6 innings. And by the way, he looked
Right?
completely exhausted
Oh my
by
god.
when he came out of that game.
And that
But
was
for
right after we finished recording, and it was like, of course, he just went 6 innings after we were just talking about, like people being upset that he had only gone 5. It's just like,
so you go from this high where you're like, oh, okay, so the whole goal was to get stretched out, right? Get stretched
mhm.
out. I did get a bunch of messages of going, oh, of course, now they're going to let him go 6, which the start before he had the no hitter through 5, but they pulled
But if
him after
but
5.
if they hadn't had that conversation up to that point and it was just 5 innings up to that point, then yes, they did pull him. And if they're trying to stretch him out before the postseason, then I guess I just don't understand. This is one of those things where I may see things differently than everybody. Like to me, it's like, all right, 5 innings, 6 innings. Like we got to the postseason, we led the division, we won the division. Like they're gonna work him up also because that was the plan. He's not going off on a rehab assignment. He's been literally rehabbing in the game. And like you mentioned, he was gassed when he
Yeah.
came out. So to me, absolutely be careful with him. It took all season to work him up to 6, and you saw how tired he was. We don't need him gassed going into the postseason, too. So for me, I think something that also gave me pause in not like completely losing it with the bullpen was that Doc was a lot more forceful in his post game than he has been all season.
Yeah, he
where
was.
it was like, okay, you know what? I'm not worried. They're gonna, whether he is the voice of the front office, and a lot of people will say he's a puppet, whatever. Take all of that aside. They're a group together deciding how this is gonna go. If they decide that like Tanner Scott is not the way to go in the postseason, I had more confidence after that presser in that capacity of like, all right, this may be where we start shuffling and we do see some of the kids coming up and they're just going to start taking down innings instead of some of the, Kirby Yates is on the IL. Tanner Scott may not make the roster. They're realizing the seriousness of it.
I do want to go into that Dave Roberts post game because I agree with you. He said a lot of interesting things in that post game interview, but I think what happened to that reaction with the Dodgers is because you saw Shohei get stretched out to six shutout innings. First time he did that. That being said, I don't expect him to go six in the postseason at all. If he was this exhausted after this, I mean, the postseason, those pitches, it's just going to be even more exhausting. So if you can get five,
it'll be situational at best, probably like you said, 5, and then if needed, depending on where we're at, then you might see something like that, especially between, is he going to get enough rest between some of those games, because we have a couple days, especially as they're traveling, is that going to be sufficient? So then you might see him go 7 and then maybe 5 in another one.
Yeah, so I if you get 5 from Shohei, I think you're in a good spot. But I think what was really just set everyone off is at that point from the 7th inning, we're talking about 3 innings, Amie, you had the bullpen give up 5 runs to lose that game. And that's what's the tough, because the guys that came in and
it
gave
was
up
all
those runs,
it was all the lower half of of their lineup too.
yeah,
It wasn't even the stars of the D-backs.
but not only that, but it was the Dodgers' highest leverage guys, like Dreyer, who's been good for the majority of the season. Lately, here come the end of the season, he had a hiccup against the Phillies. He had this hiccup against the D-backs. Enriquez, who's been great all season, he had a hiccup, at the worst possible time. And then, Tanner Scott, the issues with Tanner Scott have been, already well established. So I think you lose that game, and I think the panic was, all right, can these guys just hold on and just win the division? But better yet, that's when we started hearing the rumblings, right, of they were going to use the starters in the bullpen. And at that point, Dave Roberts had said that Clayton Kershaw was going to be available out of the bullpen for that series, right? And so you're sitting there going, okay, and I think I sent this to you. I said, is this a desperation move? As like, is this using Kershaw? Because using Kershaw out of the bullpen in the regular season, and I get it in the terms of that's how you would use him in the postseason, just because of the number of starters that you have, that you really, it's not going to lend himself for him to make a start. But I was like, damn, you're going already to your starters just to get you to the end of the season to win that division. So that really caught my attention. But when he, in that post-game interview, basically said that he saw these guys pitching scared, I thought he was right on, Amie. I was like, there are times where I feel Dave Roberts totally protects his players, and that's, I feel, what makes him a great manager, and that's why I think players respond to him, is because he's out there. I'm on your side. So, when he comes out there and calls a spade,
people need to do their jobs. That's
exactly
where I perked. I was like rounding out my scorecard, and I was like, what?
Yeah, do their jobs. And the pitching scared, that part really stood out to me, because I think he was right. If you watch Tanner Scott, I had said this to my compadre, because my compadre is just like, can you even use Tanner Scott at all in the postseason? And I said, I do think, and I could be proven wrong, because that's probably going to be the most fascinating thing, right? He ends up having a great postseason, but he looks like mentally he's gone every time he goes on the mound. I don't want to go as far as to say scared, but when Dave Roberts said scared, I mean, it just looks, if it's not scared, it looks like Tanner Scott is waiting for something to go wrong the minute he goes on. And I just don't know how you can pitch like that in the postseason.
Well, you can't. I mean, something's got to change. Like you even heard him in Tanner Scott's postseason, which was, I should have won that game. It was my fault. That was his 10th blown save. He leads the MLB according to some of the stats that I saw, where it was just like, good grief. Like it can't be a good feeling. You know, he doesn't want to be blowing saves.
Once I see the Tanner Scott post game interview, I'm like, this is depressing. Why? I get it, and all kudos for him for standing there and taking the questions, but man, it is brutal because there are no other answers, Amie. He's giving the right answers. He's being accountable, but it's still, for me, it's tough to watch and listen. And so that's why I was fully prepared after that game. Okay, they're going to completely rebuild the bullpen on the fly I don't know who used this expression. I don't know if it came from the radio broadcast or the TV broadcast, but it's like, we're literally going to build the plane as it's flying through the air. That's what it seems like what the Dodgers were going to do with the bullpen. But kudos to them. Just when everybody was anxious and being like, oh my gosh, we're going to lose the division, not only do they go and take care of business in the next two games, even though that next game, that extra inning game, was another game where it's like, oh my, they're going to blow the division. They're going to blow the division. If you look at it, folks, they've won 15 of their last 20 going into the postseason. Amie, are we just not giving them enough credit for them maybe figuring some things out because of the bullpen's issues?
Yes. This is why you just, like, aside from my Tanner Scott frustration, this is why, like, until the season is over and we know how the playoff picture is going to look like, this is where there's nothing that we can do about it. Losing that one game didn't feel good, but out of that 6 game like conclusion, that road trip, they went 5-1, and there were a lot of good things that happened too. Ben Rortvedt hit his first Dodgers home run in that game. It was sad because they lost, but like at least you're seeing him producing for everybody who's like, oh my gosh, we're not going to have Will Smith, but at least he's contributing. So you're seeing signs of life. Is he going to be Will Smith, just like you said last week? No, but better to have somebody who's actively contributing to, scoring runs than just like, okay, I can catch.
Yeah, absolutely. So they end up winning the division. They won 2 out of 3 against the Serpientes. It's their 12th division in 13 years. It seemed, I know we talked about that there was no way they were going to go in the pool because that pool was going to be guarded, but it seemed really a mild celebration when they were on the field. But then once they went into the clubhouse and they broke out the champagne, then they all went nuts. And I thought was really great was those young guys who have never been through this before, the Dalton Rushings, the Robleskis. Those guys seem to really have enjoyed themselves during the celebration.
Yeah, and before we get into that, we're kind of skipping over like the Frankenstein game of, like, you're talking about building the plane in the air, but we went through what I think 8 pitchers in that 11 extra inning game, and we saw Roki Sasaki make his return after being out since what was it, like May 9th. He came out of the bullpen, had a great inning. We saw Kershaw come out of the bullpen, and he looked pumped. That was the first time since I had seen him in that NLDS game against the Nats in 2019. So like even just getting to see them contribute in a different capacity, like they're saying that Roki's having to get creative with the transition, but he's confident with his mechanics. Just seeing that these guys are willing to do anything to do their part to get to that celebration, and then hopefully 1, 2, 3, 4 more, 5 more, however many that shakes out to level wise. Like it was just, I know people were concerned they didn't want to see the guys gassed, but I feel like they still pulled it off. And you had almost the total opposite. So you have 8 pitchers being used. They're going 11 innings in that Wednesday game after a horrible loss on Tuesday. And then you go into Thursday and they shut out the Diamondbacks. You see Shohei Ohtani, they didn't get to go into the pool, but he hit a home run into the pool, which that was the closest we were going to get. And I got really excited.
Yeah, I mean, what's crazy is that Wednesday game was almost a carbon copy of the Tuesday game, but you got a different result there. But once again, you had a strong starting performance from Blake Snell.
Mm-hmm.
You had a lead, and once again, it was a high leverage pitcher. Now the Roki thing, okay, once again it was a high. This time it was Alex Vesia. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's one of the things where I don't know that we're completely out of the woods yet. And
No.
like, hey, the bullpen has figured out because on consecutive nights, you had the high leverage guys. And what you have to, I want to remind everybody is during those first 2 games, the division was still in stake. So that's why when you compare it, and we'll get to it when we talk about Seattle, the bullpen looked very different in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was because there was nothing to play for anymore. There really wasn't any pressure. So that's what concerns me is when there is pressure and the bullpen is reacting this way. How are they going to react in the bullpen? Because again, in the playoffs, and a lot of these high leverage guys that the Dodgers are depending on are very young and haven't been there before, like Enriquez, like Dreyer.
Right. And so it's concerning because of exactly what you mentioned. You saw even Tanner Scott, you saw Blake trying to do better after they clinched, which is good. You want to have that progression, but if it's because they're not in that high pressure situation, that is concerning because we're about to be in the highest pressure. And what you've said in the past, we're going to have the lower scoring games. You're not going to have like an 8-game shutout. I mean, could it happen? Yes, weirder things have happened in the postseason, but more likely than not, these are going to be closer games. And you cannot have a starter start off and go the length of the game, hold it down, have the offense come in, and then blow it in like that last inning or two. It was nice to see them pull that off from the Wednesday perspective, especially because they did have to cobble that together. But it was kind of refreshing to just see them clinch the next day. You saw Yoshinobu Yamamoto have his last regular season start, and he ended up not with just 200 strikeouts, but 201. And the last Dodger to do that did that in 2021. So it was just like little milestones along the way, and just kind of hoping that the bullpen can either pull themselves out of it or they do have to Frankenstein it. And we, like you said, we still don't know what the roster is going to look like yet, and especially for each series, but hopefully they're very selective in what they do decide to cobble together.
What I know everybody's super amped about Roki, in particular after that first appearance on that Wednesday game. And I know a lot of Dodger fans were sending me messages, especially once it went into extra innings, like, why didn't they let Roki go pitch 2 innings? And this is, again, we are in uncharted territory. And if you're going to use Roki as a reliever, we had to keep in mind that these are guys that pitch every day. They're not starters.
Mm-hmm.
Roki has been a starter the majority of his career, so he has had that ability to rest. This is a completely different new role. We don't know how he's going to react. So I had no problem with Roki only going 1 inning, especially since it was his first relief appearance.
Well, and his first like regular season game since May. The other thing to keep in mind too is, to your point, starting is totally different than relief. You get 1, maybe 2 innings typically. So we also need to see how he does in 1 inning. We've seen some pitchers where 1 inning is disastrous. We need to see, okay, what does that look like without the possibility of him getting to go back out there on an up down. So even just getting to see, okay, first game back, let's test you out. How are you doing not in the minors, but then also like, all right, what is it? Can you hold your control for an inning?
That's going to be the big question is, will you be able to use him back to back in the postseason, when we've seen these guys, these phenoms that just go on these tears in the postseason, especially relievers, you see them pitch in consecutive days. We don't know how Rocky's gonna, if he can even do that. I would have loved for him to have gotten one more relief outing, especially in that Sunday game. But I get it. Landon Knack was doing his job. He controlled the Marineros. But we saw a Roki pitch in Arizona. We saw him pitch in Seattle. I would have loved for him to get one more outing in Seattle just so he could get acclimated to that multiple use. But I get it. It's the last game of the season. You just want to get out of there with no injuries. You just want to get ready to the postseason. But I think the thing that we're going to run up against is maybe there wasn't enough time to amp up Roki to this, and so I'm
And
I'm
they had to
excited.
test out everybody else too. Like they had to give Heaney an opportunity that, like we saw with the Mariners, Knack, like you just mentioned. And there's a lot of people that they kind of have to try out. And thank goodness some of the starters are going longer, but you're trying to kind of mix around that stuff too, just to see who is viable and who might be a potential question mark.
Yeah, look, Yamamoto had himself a really good season this year. And I know people are going to be talking about the Cy Young with Yamamoto, but like Paul Skeens has that wrapped up. But Yamamoto had himself a really good season. He stayed healthy throughout the season and he delivered. For the majority of the season, I know his win-loss record may be misleading, but the majority of the season, that guy never got run support. So that's why I don't think you could really go by the numbers in terms of one loss. But if you go through and look at his ERA, you mentioned the number of strikeouts he had this year. I think the last person that did 200 for the Doyers in 2021, that was Walker Buehler, right?
Could have been. I don't know. I stopped at the year. I was trying to gather all the information for this, so we'll let
I
if you
mean,
want to dig it up, go for it.
even if he would have gotten some more run support and he would have gotten some more wins in his belt, he ended up on the season with a 2.49 ERA. I mean, which is fantastic. But when Paul Skeens' ERA is under 2, it's just, you just got to tip your hat. Paul Skeens had a fantastic year. So I that game I think was so confident. I think it also helps that the Serpientes decided to throw a bullpen game on Thursday, and the Dodgers were able to jump on the bullpen very early in that game. Clearly, I understand the strategy that the Serpientes were doing. They wanted to save their
They've
big pitcher.
gotten a lot of flack.
Well, look, they thought, and I guess that's one way of looking at it. Maybe they thought, hey, we're facing Yamamoto. We're going to need our it's going to go to the end of the wire. And it turns out they got swept in San Diego, and things just did not work out for the Serpientes. But I did think it was great that Yamamoto was on the mound and he clearly dominated. He got the run support, and you were able to once again wrap up the division there. So you could do what you ended up doing in Seattle. And like I said, there's many reasons I think why the bullpen looked different in Seattle. But I do think wrapping up the division really helped with those bullpen performances in Seattle. Anything else that you want to talk about the Serpientes before we move to Seattle?
No, are we saving the clinching for later, or are we?
Go ahead, talk about the clinching.
Oh, I don't have too much. Like I was excited. Like it was something just. I don't know if you watch the broadcast after, but I love seeing like all the little interviews, the fun that they have, especially because the season is so long. Getting to see them, there are some people who are like, you should only celebrate at the end during the World Series, and it's like, no, you need to celebrate the little things along the way. And now it's being made into a RotoWare shirt. But Dave Vassay was interviewing Clayton Kershaw. Dave Vassay's got Clayton Kershaw's drenched shirt on his head because it's Dave Vassay, of course. And then you've got Clayton Kershaw with, I don't want goggles, I don't want a shirt, I hardly want pants, Dave. And now that is a shirt that you can order if you want to rock that in the postseason. So just all of the comical quotes that come in, the slip and slide. So you're seeing some of the like trainers, like you're seeing Possum slide by. Dave Vassay is he's interviewing Tommy Edman, and Edman's like, go do it. And it's like, no. We saw what happened in Milwaukee when Dave went down the slide. Let's maybe not have him do a slip and slide across the floor. Probably not super beneficial.
You mentioned the two biggest takeaways for me from that celebration. For me, it was about Kershaw, not necessarily the pants comment. It was more about Kershaw talking about how much he enjoys this. And you look at it and you're like, God, this guy got to do this for the majority of his career. I mean, in the beginning, things were rough. But then after that, he consistently got to do that. So to get to hear Kershaw say that he never really took any of these celebrations for granted, he enjoyed every single one of them. And that this one, I think, knowing that this was his last one, it just really adds something to, as you're watching it, as everything that these guys go to and how many of them. It was a nice contrast when you saw Robleski and Dreyer and the other guys getting interviewed who were in Dalton Rushing, who this was their first time, doing this. And Kershaw, yeah, I do this every year. And he could so easily just be ho-hum about it. But he was enjoying it like it was his first time. So I love
that. He's like a little kid. Like that's what you want to see in baseball.
Yeah, I thought that was, as I said, one of my favorite takeaways from that. And then the slip and slide with all the behind the scenes Dodger people. I'm so glad it wasn't any like everyday players or key players that were doing that stuff, but it was like the trainers and the people who work on the Dodger staff that was doing it. So good for them that they get to do that.
Well, and it's nice, like, especially you and I being around, like, kind of that behind the scenes part for so long. Like there's, you're watching it and it's like, oh my God, there's Sonia. I gotta like back it up. And like Sonia Chen, who writes for MLB. And then you see some of the people like who are working on the documentary for Shohei. And it's like, oh, there's my friend Yuka. And it's just like, it's not just seeing the players, but it's just all these people who make it go. The trainers, the support staff, the guys, the clubbies in the clubhouse, like just everybody getting to enjoy all of the hard work that they've done, the grind that goes into everything. You see, and you're kind of trying to pick out your favorite players. Like I'm looking for Kike and Banda and Miguel Rojas. And then you see like Dalton Rushing picking up Hae-Sung Kim. And I'm like, maybe let's not pick him up. Let's not hurt our backs. And, they're interviewing Ben Rortvedt, which much like a Kevin Kiermaier last year, like you come in at the trade deadline and now you're part of this like big Dodger family. There's got to be a contrast though, like because you didn't start the season with them, but now you're like partaking in all of this stuff. There's so many different levels of enjoyment. I sat and I watched it, and then it came on again later, and it was just this like I just couldn't stop smiling because this is what they worked so hard for and what we as fans kind of want to see, getting to see that behind the scenes stuff. So that was mainly my just so great.
You mentioned something that I don't know that everyone is that aware of or that familiar with, the Shohei documentary that's being filmed. Do you want to fill in people on that?
As far as like it's being filmed?
Like what? Like I don't think people are aware that there is a documentary being made on Shohei.
I mean, I don't have much information other like it's being made, but like think of, any player that you've watched a documentary of, like we look back and, we're going to look back in X amount of years and somebody's going to compile all that footage of Clayton Kershaw. And we're going to be watching that and like, oh man, I was at that game or this thing. They're doing the same thing. So you have different media outlets that have more access than others that are basically, chronicling his progression.
This isn't a documentary specifically of this year. This is
ongoing. This is ongoing.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, let's go into Seattle. So they went ahead. It was their final.
They clinched in the afternoon. So it wasn't like they clinched and it's like 11 midnight, 1 a.m, and now they've got to get up and play baseball the next day, or they've got to travel. In our case, there was no getaway day, so they're on the way to Seattle. But it was like, oh, okay, so now they can have a happy flight early enough, take some naps, and then play in Seattle.
Look, they ended up sweeping the Marineros. And yes, the Marineros had already won their division, But the Marineros still had something to play for. They could have ended up getting the number 1 seed in the
Mhm.
American League. So I'm not going to completely dismiss the performance. I will say this, Amy, I was surprised that the Dodgers swept the Marineros. Those were competitive games. So I saw a team up there that I feel like they were loose. They played good baseball out there. I know you probably want to start off with, well, I'll let you have it.
What do I
What
want to
were-
start out with?
well, somebody had a big moment in that series, so
Oh, we saw Kike show up early for the
there you
postseason.
go.
So
There you go.
his hibernation, his alarm clock has gone off early. He has had some success so far. He had a 2-run home run. There was even a catch in the bottom of the third. Josh Naylor was running to third base. Kike catches the ball, kind of rolls over him, and then you see like Josh Naylor and him have a moment, and it just like he did some great things. Saturday, his 2-run double is the reason that they were able to take the lead. So he's he had a good series, Mikey K.
I know that you're the president of the Kika fan club, and I'm not going to sit here and bash Kike, because for me, Kike will forever get a pass for me for many reasons. One is his postseason performance, but also he was the only Dodger player that spoke out or
Mhm,
said anything about the ice raids
mhm.
that takes place. So for
You are
me,
not going to talk about his emo hair, are you? Do not.
no,
Okay.
what I'm going to talk about, and I this is what I'm going to talk about. For as much grief as Michael Conforto got this year, and he ended up finishing under the euchre line, ladies and gentlemen. So the Michael Conforto watch ended. He was above the euchre line in that last game in Seattle, but he took the collar, so he finished the season under the euchre line. You know who else finished the season under the euchre line, Amy?
Kike.
Yeah, and I know it's coming. I know it's like, well, but he was hurt all season. Here's the reason why you re-signed Kike. And like what you had just said, he came out of her hibernation. You can call it whatever you want, either a playoff preview, but this dude just seems to be a different cat when it comes to the postseason. And I'm going to stand corrected before anybody comes at me. Actually, because of his performance in Seattle, he finished above the euchre line. He finished hitting
Ah,
203. But
okay.
there was, before the Seattle series, he had been struggling offensively. He was, under the euchre line. And I think there was maybe some doubts that'd be like, oh, did Kike finally, is he getting towards the end of his magical run? And then
Who
he showed
said
up in
this?
Seattle and said, "Hold my beer," and reminded everybody, to the point where you had Dodger players saying, not Dodger players, Dodger fans saying, "Juan, he better be playing in every game in the postseason." Why?
Well,
Because playoff geek is a real thing.
Well, and so in that, I mentioned that interview that I got to be a part of when he had that lunch with the season ticket holders, and he was talking about how cocky he gets. Like he has to turn on this confidence when the postseason gets here, and he's like, "My wife understands. She doesn't like it, but he has this whole other persona that he turns on in the postseason." And it feels like it got turned on a little earlier. You're seeing it so far, and I love it. You know me. He is my favorite current day player, and I would love to see him get signed again next year. I know people will say his batting average and things like that don't qualify him to be a candidate for that, but to me, I just think because he's so versatile, because he shows up in the postseason, and because he is clutch when we need him. He's not going to be the Freddie Freeman of the team every time, but you need some of those guys that are so versatile that you can do that, especially with Max Muncy. That Friday, that's when it was announced that he would be out with that lower body injury, unspecified. And then you've got Tommy Edman that we're continuing to rest and nurse along. So the fact that you can plug Kike in basically anywhere, and we're also seeing Freddie Freeman getting some rest here and there, Dalton Rushing getting plugged in. Because of that clinching, I think, like you mentioned, that they were playing loose. We saw it very different lineup constructions. You're seeing Freddie and Mookie out in a game. You're seeing Shohei Ohtani get his second day of rest outside of the paternity leave that he was on. Like, keep in mind, he is rehabbing, he is pitching, he is, he's working on the field, but he's also a father. This first-time father at that, he still managed 20 stolen bases and then broke his own record from last year with 55 home runs. Like, I am dying. I am crawling across the finish line of this year trying to work and cover this team. And this guy's just like, wow, I look a little gassed after my 6th inning pitching, and still manages to like show up at games.
I like I said, for me, I was very surprised that they ended up sweeping because of everything that you just mentioned right now. It seemed like the Dodgers were out there doing workouts during games.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, I really didn't expect much. So for them to end up winning all 3 games with different lineups, not necessarily their A lineup on there. I mean, Amie, on Saturday, the game ended with 9 consecutive strikeouts from the bullpen, and some of those strikeouts coming from guys that were struggling. And again, this is
And that's
why
the second time in the expansion era that you've seen 9 consecutive strikeouts of batters to end a game. That came from Sarah Langs, because that was on my list of things like, who saw that coming?
Oh, again, I lower my expectations. Lowered expectations. Because I don't know if what we saw from the bullpen in Seattle was real or if it was a mirage. Roki once again came
And it
out
really
there.
doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but we have no control over that. They're going to play who they're going to play in the postseason, and we're just going to have to clench, get a bunch of Tylenol, work out those muscles, schedule some massages, because like it's going to be a roller coaster, and we don't know who we're going to get, and they're going to go for it.
Yeah, I mean, Roki came out and looked good again. That's why I would have loved to have seen him pitch that Sunday.
Andrew
But
Heaney, Lil Rocky.
Well, I mean, I don't think Andrew Heaney was ever a serious consideration for the postseason.
Well, they're saying he was there for length. So whether that was just for that Saturday game or they also mean it for the postseason, I think I fell asleep early that night, so I don't know if I saw what happened with that, but he did give up that 3-run home run. But that, again, it's like, it's always like it's a couple miscues that end up things imploding.
I know he's looked good in the minor leagues, but again, that's the minor leagues. I just, but I'm not the one that makes the decisions. I do not. I don't think he was a serious being seriously considered. But then again, because the Phillies have the lefties that they have, do the Dodgers want an extra left-handed arm in the bullpen? I don't know. I'm still not convinced that he's under serious consideration. But
Well, we're about to find out. Like today, the day that we're recording is Monday, and they're having their workout day, but they're sliding into the wild card tomorrow. So we're about to find out like where the rubber meets the road with some of this stuff.
So before we talk about that wild card matchup, I do just want to.
I have a couple things. So
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yet. Oh no, go ahead.
Well, for me, the really only other takeaway I had from that Seattle series was Kershaw's last start.
It was, and I want to expand on that, but I do want to give just a tiny little blip. So Harry Ford on the Mariners did make his debut this year, and he got his first MLB hit on Saturday. And they were talking about this, but there was a lot of other stuff on social media that coming up, like growing up, Harry, his idol was Freddie Freeman. He grew up in the Atlanta area. And you saw the playback of some of the stuff of like when Freddie Freeman came up for his first at bat, he kind of tapped Harry on the shoulder. And then when Harry got that first run and got to first base, you saw him like getting to chat with Freddie Freeman. And like, what a surreal moment. Like we talk about that with like, Will Smith getting to play with Theo Albert, with Albert Pujols, like just having those full circle moments. Like those are, again, just the little things that had no bearing on the game itself, but just those beautiful little things in baseball. So I just wanted to toss that in there.
Yeah, for me, it was again Kershaw. it was I thought it was a great moment. I tipped my hat to the Marineros fans, even though seems to have been a lot of Dodger fans in Seattle
Mhm.
the whole weekend. When I was listening to the game on the radio, I would hear the cheer, so I would think it was naturally something good happened for the Mariners, and then the radio call confirms that it was the Dodgers, scoring or getting ahead. So but I thought it was great that just the way Dave Roberts handled it, and it really, I think, was just complete kismet for him to be able to come out in that sixth inning. He was told he was going to get one more batter, and he ends up striking him out. So this is a guy who started his regular season career with a strikeout and ends his regular season career with a strikeout. I just it seemed I think John Hartung said this in the post game where it almost seems like Kershaw wrote his own ending. He was able to write this narrative out. The family was there. AJ Ellis was in the stands. Rick Honeycutt was there for his last start. So, and I know Kershaw has been out there preaching this, and that a lot of baseball is his relationships with these guys. So for these guys to come out there and trek and pay their respects to see him in his final game, I think it was just a wonderful moment. And the only complaint I had about it
Okay.
the unicorn had to ruin it by hitting that 55th home run, and it's like, damn, Shohei, can't you just just a little bit? And literally the next inning, he hits the home run, and it's just like, couldn't you just let Kershaw just bask in it a little more? It's like Shohei is just like, here, hold my beer. I got this. This is the Shohei show. Now people are going to be talking about me.
The torch has been passed, bro. You
Yes,
texted me
exactly.
that and I was laughing. So I was at the LA card show yesterday and they were having a watch party, so got to watch the game on Dodger Vision. But just getting to see Kershaw throw that 3052nd strikeout, it was so beautiful. But then you see it was like, hold on, wait a second. Freddie Freeman's going out of the mound to go, pull Clayton Kershaw from the game, and you know that Freddie is loving every second of it. And then you see like this kind of little scuffle. You don't really know what's happening. They walk off. He gets all the congratulations, and then there's a clip that's going around where Freddie is sitting now on like the dugout bench, like up in the front, and then you've got Clayton Kershaw kind of sitting by himself, probably taking in the moment. And you hear Freddie say, "I wanted that ball, Kersh," and Kersh is just sitting there, and he's like, "Nope." And it sounded like little kids. And like I love that this game, it can be such a grind. Social media, some fans can be so just down on players, down on the game, but to have those moments, like it never fails to make me smile. And just like seeing the interactions, just like you said, the relationships that he's going to miss, just that playfulness. And it was just another bittersweet moment in this like farewell tour for Clayton Kershaw. And just the way that the Mariners fans were so classy about that, and he got his moment, and now he gets to kind of sit and marinate on it and then get ready to go into the postseason. So
I know you were in the brewery, so you might not have seen it, but they did not cut to commercial. They kept the camera on there.
no,
So
I was at the stadium for that.
oh,
So
so
we were the
so you could
contingent
hear it
of-
live. That conversation was live.
So there was a lot of noise and stuff going on at the card show itself. That's why I saw it later. But a lot of the stuff we did get to see in real time. If they thought it cut to commercials, they would put the DJ music back on for the card show.
Yeah. So
there were certain things that we missed that I had to go back and rewatch later.
Yeah, that was live. So you had also heard on top of that Freddie say, "I've never taken a pitcher out before. I just wanted the ball."
I didn't hear that. That's amazing.
So I and you could tell that Freddie was joking this whole time. But yeah, kudos to Spectrum Sportsnet for not cutting to commercial.
That's twice with the
capturing.
Yoshi almost no hitter, and then here like just giving us those moments.
Yeah, and again, this is the reason why Dave Roberts is a player's manager. He really, and I know Dave Assay asked him in the post game about that, but he allowed Kershaw to have his moment and make this really extra special. And not only is it special for Kershaw, but I think it's special for the fans that are watching it. So, again, I think that is a strength of Dave Roberts is his ability to how he handles the media, how his public. I think that's definitely a reason I think he probably ended up getting this job, and he
Hmm.
just is really good at that stuff.
Hmm. And then you have, just like you said, cut to next inning, and it's like, sorry, your moment's over. And you have Shohei with that 55th home run. And then you have all the stats that are flying now across social media, where he's the only player in MLB history to steal 20 bases in a season. He started 5 or more games as a pitcher, and he's done it twice, in 2021 and 2025. So of course the unicorn keeps unicorning, because he also beat last year with 54 home runs. So it's just like, he's almost hold my bearing to himself at this point, and just like, of course he's going to get better every year.
Well, I mean, the thing is also he's the only. This is a weird stat that's been going out there, and that is he's the only player in Major League history to end the season with 55 home runs. No other player in Major League Baseball has ever ended their season with hitting 55 home runs.
Really?
Yeah.
Of course he's got a rando stat like that.
And it's so funny because every time they give out that, I had to double check it myself because I never said it on the radio. You heard it all over social media. People were saying that he is the first person to end their season. And again, this is their numbers at the end are 50. Nobody has ended their season with 55 home runs. Yes, people have hit more than 55 home runs in
Yes.
a season, but no one has ended their season with their total being 55 home runs. So he gets to
Interesting.
add that, of course, to his growing list of accolades. No one in Dodger franchise history had ever hit 50 home runs before he showed up, and this is year 2 of his
Hmm.
contract. So it could be by the end, we're all said and done. I don't you know what? I'm not even going to say that because there is a possibility. I thought Duke Snyder holds the Dodgers all-time home run record, but that includes going back to the Brooklyn days. Eric
Mm.
Karros is the all-time home run leader for Los Angeles. I think he's going to pass Eric Karros, barring, of course, injury or anything like that. I think Shohei will end up being the LA Dodger all-time home run record. Does
Well,
he have a chance at Duke Snyder? Duke Snyder's over 300 home runs as a Dodger. I mean,
hold my
it.
beer.
I know it. I can't put anything past this guy. He still has 8 more years in a Dodgers uniform, but 50. He's put up 250s. No one had ever hit 50 home runs in the Dodgers organization until he showed up. He is just. He's absolutely just amazing to watch. Are there any other milestones that you want to cover?
No, I know we're doing a short show this week, so probably we can slide on over to what's actually coming up tomorrow, which is the beginning of the postseason.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people are enjoying the Mets' demise of not playing making the playoffs because they have the
Can I
second
just
large.
say, when you have 29 other teams though that are excited that Houston didn't get in, there's a little bit of karma there that just like,
But for me, I
like
know
poor
because
poor Mets, but like Houston.
not poor Mets because this was on them. But I know a lot is being made up of the fact that they had the second largest payroll in all of Major League Baseball, and
Which
they didn't.
just proves checkbook baseball is like, yes, it's nice to have the players, but it doesn't rule out anything.
And I know a lot of people, I think were thought the Mets were a more favorable matchup for the Dodgers in the wild card. Hats out to tip of the hat, excuse me, to the Marlins of Miami who had nothing to play for just to be spoilers, and they showed up on that Sunday game and they won it when the Metropolitans had everything to play for, and so.
Which
They
is
gave them
what you want to see though. Like you
yeah,
don't want people quitting on the game. Even if you don't
exactly.
have a shot, you want it to be competitive. Like I was looking at all the stats, even just from like the standings and whatnot. And I was actually surprised because we saw like the White Sox not do so great, setting records last year. And they actually beat Colorado. And Colorado didn't even do as badly as the White Sox last year. So it was like, hey, we've got some minor improvement with some of these teams at the bottom. Like,
It's baby steps. The Rockies finished 50 games out of first place this
yeah, they
year.
were 43 and 119. And then the White Sox were 60 and 102.
So baby steps, I guess. So I know that some Dodger fans wanted the Metropolitans match up because it felt like the Dodgers matched up better against them.
Really?
I will
We
say
did
that
better against the Reds this season.
but the Reds, this is a short series.
Yeah,
And the Reds have starting pitchers that right now are
right.
pitching better than anybody on the Metropolitans team. So that is the concern. And that's why I feel that this series will be a low scoring series. I think starting pitching will dominate this series. My biggest concern, Amy, and I don't think it's going to happen. Dave Roberts said this in Arizona, and it wasn't bleeped, but he told the players, "Keep your fucking edge," is what he
Yes,
said.
he did.
Um,
And there
so
goes
I,
our friendly rating.
so I really hope that they do keep that in the wild card, because I don't think they can take this team for granted, because the Reds have a great manager.
Mhm.
They also have Ellie de la Cruz. I am concerned about, they're going to be playing old school baseball. They're going to be stealing bases. They're going to be manufacturing runs. And with the starting pitching they have, again, I think this is going to be a low scoring series. My concern, and this is what we've been talking about the last few weeks, Amy, I feel these games are going to come down to that Dodgers bullpen.
I mean, but
And
that's not anything that we don't know. And just for anybody who's getting ready to tune in, because I know we're running out of time, game one will be Tuesday, so September 30th. That is going to be a 6:08 p.m. start. It's going to be on ESPN. They have named Blake Snell as the starter, and Joe Kelly will be throwing out the ceremonial first pitch. Um,
oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So Bill Plunkett had actually posted, like windows everywhere are not safe. And then game two will be Wednesday, October 1st, again at 6:08. And then if needed, I believe it's still going to be the same time, 6:08 on Thursday. They haven't. Um, so we'll see. Hopefully it's not needed in our favor that Thursday game needs to be played. But it will definitely be interesting because even OptiStats put out this stat, but it's not indicative of how a team finishes the season. As you're saying, they finished really well. But the Reds are the first team in MLB history with no qualifying batter that hit 270, no batter that hit 25 home runs, no pitcher that won 15 games, and no pitcher that notched 200 strikeouts in a non-shortened season, and yet they still made the playoffs. So they have fight. It's going to be a dogfight no matter what, especially like you said, these are going to be lower scoring games. So the offense will need to start producing some of those runs. They will probably still rely on the long ball because of the injuries and people just coming back and trying to get healed. But hopefully they can mix in some of that small ball and move people over and kind of keep the ground that they've been working with.
The Rojos remind me a lot of the Serpientes team, the 2023 Serpientes team that swept the Doyers. I think the Rojos, they come in there with nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know any better. They haven't been there. They have really young guys that I think are probably like fearless. So I am. I can see perhaps the Rojos jumping on the Doyers early, and then the pressure goes on the Doyers.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think, in a best case scenario, Amy, you're right. If the Dodgers can take care of business in the first two games, that'll be fantastic, because that would line up the unicorn to start the NLDS in Philadelphia. If they have to go to three games, they've already mentioned that Glass now would be pitching out of the bullpen in this
Mm-hmm.
series. So that means that the unicorn would be their number, would start that game three if it's necessary. So I
Mm-hmm.
think in a perfect world, the Dodgers don't want that third game, and they want to be able to start with the unicorn in Philadelphia.
Well, and we're going to see some creativity because we're not going to see Clayton Kershaw in this series because obviously he pitched on Sunday. So we're gonna see some moves, maybe some stuff that wouldn't necessarily be what we would see in the regular season, and we're all just going to be along for the ride. And hopefully they do well and we can make it to that next series and then focus on the Phillies. But we got to get through these next few games that are coming up. So for anybody who's going to be at the stadium, I'll be there the next couple nights. So hopefully, whether you're watching on TV or watching at the stadium, hopefully we get a good result.
Does it surprise you that Glasnow is the option out of the bullpen and not Kershaw?
No, I mean, because Kershaw just pitched. Like, he pitched a little bit more recently than, so not really. Honestly, I don't overthink it just because it's like they're going to do what they're going to do anyway.
Yeah, I especially with starters, I feel like it's about routine. And being that Kershaw did do it earlier this week, I thought, okay, they're really programming Kershaw to come out of the bullpen. So when they decided that Glasnow was going to be the one coming out of the bullpen, that kind of surprised me. But I'm sure they're probably only going to use Glasnow maybe in a piggyback situation or long relief if one of those starters does go short.
We don't know how many innings they're going to use him for. Maybe they're like max 2 because we need him for the DS. So yeah. It could just be he's like in that Kershaw role. We only saw Kershaw in relief for 1 inning. It could just be that situation because Tyler just pitched on Saturday. But for Kershaw to come in on short rest, we don't need to do to him in his 18th year what we've done to him in previous seasons, which is overuse. So to me, I'm not shocked that they're not playing him at all. If they're going to use Tyler 1 inning, 2 innings in, multiple, we don't know. We're all about to find out. We're all on this journey together. So
yeah, it's just because Kershaw had said that it took a lot out of him to get ready to pitch out of the bullpen. So when I heard him say that, I was just like, oh, then maybe that's the reason why they decided we're not going to use you out of the bullpen, because it did take a lot out of you.
I think it's just too soon, honestly. Too soon from Sunday to
that's why I'm curious if they do end up using Glasnow in any of these 2 games. How is Glasnow going to react getting ready to pitch out of the bullpen? It's something to take into consideration. I know we're going to wrap things up now, so next time we talk to you, we will know whether the Dodgers are playing in Philadelphia and how well they're doing in the division series. So
hopefully we'll be happy. I mean, today they did report that there are additional lockers, obviously in the clubhouse. So they did see Esteury Ruiz, Justin Dean, Ben Kasparius. So we're going to see, Ben possibly getting some roster starts. They haven't confirmed. And it's always so comical when you either have like the spring training or the end of season where they literally lug in if they run out of lockers. They have these they look like high school lockers, but they're like in the middle of the clubhouse. So you've got like chain link metal lockers and these guys are just kind of sitting in the middle of everything. And it's like, the postseason's here. So
there you go.
We shall see.
So are you in a press capacity this week or fan?
Not in for the wild card. I'm going strictly as fan. I'm exhausted. Okay. But the DS I may be there in a press capacity, so we shall see.
Okay. So any last words?
Go Dodgers.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. For those of you that have been listening to us on the audio portion of the show, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast, rate us, write us a review, help spread the word about the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, hit that notification button, give us a thumbs up, leave us your comments. We love engaging with you. And most importantly, make sure you're following us on social media, on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, YouTube, and Bluesky at Baseball Shangri-La. She is Amie Cuevas. I am Juan Ramirez. Nos despedimos con un beso. Amie, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye, people.